Okay, and we are live. Thank you so much for joining me for this live video. This is a continuation of a series I've been doing. I'm going through chapter 25 of the book Christ Object Lessons, and I have the link on this video if you're watching on Facebook Live or if you're watching it later, but the link is on there. I'm going to have a blog post on this as well, Pr.Marlon.com. That's Pr.Marlon.com. Now I have the exact text. I'm just going to copy and post what I'm going to be reading from. I have a link to that as well. And for now, let me just make sure that I'm sharing this everywhere here where it's supposed to be going. And also, I am live on the Wisdom app. So if you're joining me on the Wisdom app, make sure to follow me for other content like this. And also, you can see there my social media and interact with me. If you want to see me, you can go on Facebook, search for Pr.Marlon. That's Pr.Marlon. I have a page on there, and you can see the live video. And let's see here. Okay, I think I always struggle with this beginning part, but I think I got it. Just sharing this usually takes me a bit, but also gives me a chance for the crowd on the Wisdom app to join me as I'm just getting settled in right here. Okay, so once again, if you're watching me live, feel free to interact, leave a message, comment, share, and this is meant as a conversation starter. So I don't mean to be the authority on this. I'm just want to give you some ideas to think about, and these are things that I'm thinking about and sort of wrestling with. As I've mentioned on other episodes on this same topic, on this little series we're doing on Christ Object Lessons, chapter 25, I don't always fully grasp everything, and I'm just sharing my thoughts on it. So this is a small section, and it has an interesting title. So chapter 25 is a long chapter, it has different subsections, so we're just going through those. And this one is entitled, in the original, and by the way, also, many of you already know this, but if you're new, this book was published in the year 1900. So this is, it's been around for a while, so the language is a little bit difficult, and I think that's part of the challenge, but I like a good challenge, and I like what the author has to say challenges me. And once again, you can agree, you can disagree. I love to know your thoughts. I'd love to have this conversation with you. And this is something that I've read for myself in the past. I've commented with friends and said, yes, we'd love to read it too. And then they never get around to it. So I'm trying to make it easier by doing these videos. You can listen, you can interact with me, agree, disagree, read it for yourself. Let me know what your thoughts are. So the idea is to move you a little bit out of your comfort zone, right? To challenge you a little bit. Could you grow spiritually? And on that note, too, I just want to share, I am coming from a background of someone who believes in the Bible. I believe it's inspired. I grew up believing in God and the God of the Bible more specifically. In the Christian faith, my denomination is a Seventh-day Adventist. I don't think that makes too much of a difference, but it could in your mind. So I'm just going to be upfront. I don't want to hide anything from you. And that may influence, I'm biased in that way when I read the text. That's why I'm opening it to you to agree, disagree. Let me know your thoughts as we go through this. So I'm trying to be really clear, transparent, upfront. And the idea is that all of us will grow from this experience as we go through it together. And I like it because I find that it challenges me. I don't want to just sit here with my thoughts. I don't want to surround myself with people who just agree with me. I'm opening this up to you because I find that as we talk, as we dialogue, as we can sort of push back a little bit and ask questions, that's how we grow. And that's one way that I found helpful in my spiritual growth is sharing with others and inviting them to a conversation, a dialogue. And it's part of the reason why I started this series and why I appreciate reading your comments so much. Once again, if you're in the Wisdom app, thank you for joining me. Follow this account, look at the social media, leave me a comment, interact with me, and then I also have other parts of this. So this is, I don't even remember what part this is, but it's on this series. And if you go to my blog, this will not be up yet. There's a queue, there's a line, and these episodes are being uploaded once a week. But I decided to record this live to get the live interaction with you, and you can also leave comments on the blog. So I think we're ready. We're going to be jumping in. This is Christ Object Lessons, chapter 25, in the subsection entitled Kindly Impulses and Affections. So, first of all, I struggle just with this title, right? It's not the way that I talk. It's an English that I'm not used to. English is my second language. So, if you hear my accent, I was born in Brazil. I lived there until I was about a teenager and then came over to the US, did high school and college, and I've been living here ever since. But the accent has sort of stuck with me. I'm going to grab a water real quick. Of course, right? The moment I start the live stream, then I feel the need to drink. There we go. Okay, so kindly impulses and affections. Hopefully, as we jump in, this will make more sense to you. And I looked at this ahead of time. I made some notes, and let's see how this goes. Kindly affection. So I'm quoting from the book right now, and then I'll share my thoughts on it. So this is the very first sentence. Kindly affections, generous impulses, and a quick apprehension of spiritual things are precious talents and laid their possessor under a weighty responsibility. So this is the very first sentence. And I'm just trying to, okay, sorry. A little thing came up here in the live stream. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to read it so we don't get this interruption. Kindly affections, generous impulses, and the quick apprehension of spiritual things are precious talents and laid their possessor under weighty responsibility. So here's the thing, right? We've been talking, the whole chapter 25 of the book Christ Object Lessons is focusing on talents, on these abilities, these gifts that God gives us and how to put them to work. And according to the author here, kindly affections, right? Generous impulses, a quick apprehension of spiritual things. These are precious talents that God gives us. That means that we don't have this in and of ourselves. This is something that God gives us. So if you feel that way, that in your life you have an apprehension, a quick apprehension of spiritual things, where you have that sensibility about you, you feel affection, kindly affection towards others. This is not to be taken in any sexual sense, but rather you feel a desire to help people, to be kind, to just to demonstrate kindness towards others. And I've met people who have this so much more than I do. I'm working on this, but they're just kind, and kindness just flows from them when they talk, when they interact, and they're so patient and kind. And I find myself a lot of times losing my patience or getting upset. So I'm working on this. I don't think I quite have this gift. But this next part says generous impulses, right? You just feel like you want to help. I think I have a little bit more of this than kindly affections. But sometimes you just feel this need. I just want to help someone or help this person, this situation that I'm witnessing in front of me. And quick apprehension of spiritual things. I've been working, developing that. I don't know where you fall on this. But I love this last part here. I don't love it, but it challenges me, right? And maybe it'll challenge you as well. It says, they laid their possessor. So when you possess these talents, these gifts from God, under a weighty responsibility. So you have these talents, you have these gifts, but it does not make you feel superior to others. Rather, it makes you feel this sense of responsibility towards others. So let me go to the next sentence here, and I think as we read, it's going to make more sense. All are to be used in God's service. So kindly affections, generous impulses, quick apprehension of spiritual things, all of this are to be used in God's service, right? We are called to put our talents to work for the honor and glory of God. As we've been talking about in this series, that also includes caring for our neighbor. So if you're listening to this and you're not quite sure about God and what kind of version of God do you believe in, if you believe in the Bible or not, but you're seeking spiritually, you're open to possibilities, I'd say what the author here is saying is, as we serve God, we also serve those around us. So we don't serve God to the detriment of someone next to us. Rather, the two go hand in hand, right? God first, but then God's love in me also moves me to care for those around me. We see that best exemplified in the life of Jesus. Supreme love for the Father, and also sacrificial love for those around him. And this is what we're going for. So all of these things that we have, all of these gifts that God has given us, these abilities, these talents, they are to be used in God's service. Next sentence, but here many err, right? Here many make mistakes. They have this, they have the kindly affections, the generous impulses, the quick apprehension of spiritual things. But there is a problem here, right? And in using this for the glory of God, here's where some make a mistake. I'm going to read the next sentence. I think it helps clarify this. Satisfied with the possession of these qualities, they fail to bring them into active service for others. My understanding of this is you become satisfied that you have these gifts, right? Oh, I am a kind person. I am a generous person. And you have this identity. This is how you see yourself. You feel these impulses in your life, but you fail to put them to work. You're just happy to have the impulse, to have the quick, apprehension of spiritual things. You're just happy to be that person, to have these things in you. You feel, this desire to be kind, or you're kind with those that you interact with, and you think, okay, well, this is enough. But you fail to bring them into service for others. Let me keep going here. They flatter themselves that if they had the opportunity, if circumstances were favorable, they would do a great work, a great and good work. But they are awaiting the opportunity, right? So let's say you have this desire to be generous, and you think, oh, if only I had more money, I would be more generous, right? Or you're kind towards people, and instead of placing yourself in a situation where you can share that kindness with others and bless others, you just sort of keep it to yourself and keep yourself away from others. There are different ways that this can be put to work. From my perspective as a church pastor, I see that our volunteers, those who are the greeters when people first come in, those who work at the welcome desk at our church, those who help facilitate when people are coming in to find a place to sit or to answer any questions. Where's the bathroom? Where is the children's programs? Where is this and the other? You can place yourself in that situation as a volunteer, and you show your kindness and your hospitality, and you just make people feel welcome and feel loved. Or you can come in and sit down and be all by yourself. And even though you have these impulses, right, you have these gifts, you have the ability to be kind and nice to people, it just comes naturally to you, right? You interact with others and they enjoy the interaction. This is a gift from God. But if you come in and you sit down and you don't interact with others, you're robbing them of feeling special and loved and cared for. And in a way, you're burying your gift, right? You're failing to put it to work with others. Does this make sense? This is how it makes sense in my mind, that I have these gifts, I have these natural tendencies, but instead of placing myself in a volunteering in a way where others can benefit from these gifts that God has given me, I just go in and mind my own business and sit down and just read by myself, which you're not doing anything terrible, you're not doing anything wrong, you're not disrupting others, you're not breaking anything, you're not stealing, right? You're not a terrible person. But according to the author, and I love this approach once again because it challenges me, and that's why I'm sharing with you so that it can challenge you as well. I am failing to put to work what God has given me. And this, I think, is the key point of this whole section of chapter 25. Am I putting to work what God has given me? And you may feel like a kindly impulse or generous impulse or a kindly affection or generous impulse, to use the words of the author. Maybe you don't think that as a gift from God because it's not, it's not singing, or it's not, healing, or it's not whatever you wish your gift was. But according to the author, this is a gift. And there is a responsibility for those of us who have that gift to put it to work. So if you're listening to this and you find that, oh man, I think that I do have this gift. I interact with people, they enjoy my interaction. Where can I volunteer? Where can I place myself so that I can bless others with this gift that God has given me? And of course, I mentioned here the local church because this is where I am. This is the first thing that comes to mind. But I know you can volunteer at hospitals. You can volunteer at food pantries. Here at our church, we have a thrift store. We have a food pantry. We have children's ministries. We have different places where if you have these gifts, you can place yourself there. You can volunteer in such a way that others will be blessed. And if you don't happen to have a church where you live or you don't belong to one, you can find in your community places where you can volunteer and just give some of your time and put these talents that God has given you to work for the benefit of others, right? This is how each one of us can play our role in making the world a better place. And I think we can all agree that we need this type of thing. We need people like you and me doing what we can to make the world a better place. Maybe I can't stop the war. Maybe there's a lot of things that I can't do. I'm not politically inclined or involved, but maybe there's something in my community, in my neighborhood, in my church that I can do that will benefit others, to benefit the community without asking for anything in return. So this is the challenge, right? So here's the next part, and I like this because I think it helps shed light in this. They despise the narrowness of the poor, and I'm going to use here a synonym that I found online that I think is a little bit better, miser, even though we don't use that word much either, but a meanly covetous and stingy person. And I'll spell the word that's used here. Once again, this book was published in the year 1900. It says they despise the narrowness of the poor, and the word used here is Niggard. I looked this up online, and it means a meanly covetous and stingy person, or a miser. So the person who has this gift looks at the stingy, mean, miser who grudges even a pittance to the needy. And I would say, this is a small amount of money. They see that he is living for self, and that he is responsible for his misused talents. With much complacency, they draw the contrast between themselves and such narrow-minded ones, feeling that their own condition is much more favorable than that of the mean-souled neighbors. They are deceiving themselves. So how's that for something to think about, food for thought? So here's the thing, right? You may look at someone, and I always want to place myself in the shoes, in the text, and see how would I react there. So let's say I volunteer, which I do, right, quite a bit, and I do all these other things, and I look at someone who's not doing anything, and I think, this person, look at them, living so selfishly, and they're not giving as much as I give. They're not volunteering as much as I do, and they just live for themselves. What a terrible person. But going back to what we were talking about, if I have, okay, let's give another example. If I come to church and I return my tithe, I give the offering, I show up, I sit down, I listen to the service, I get up, I go home, right? I think I'm a good person, right? Because I go to church. Many of us will have that narrow definition, right? I'm a good person. I show up for church. That's good enough. And I mean, I know, I'm not, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a beginning. But if that's all you do, I think you're missing the point. But so let's say, you come, you show up, you sit down, you return your tithe, you give the offering, then you get up and you go home. And then you look at somebody else who doesn't go to church, and that person is just so selfish, and they keep all their money to themselves, and they don't help anybody else. And it's easy for me to feel better because I do something as opposed to doing nothing, and feel like I'm in a good place. I am doing better than this other person. However, the author here says they are deceiving themselves, which would be, we are deceiving ourselves. If I have these gifts and I'm not really putting them to use, I have this, the kindly affections, the generous impulses. I have a quick apprehension of spiritual things, but I just show up and sit down, and that's all that I do. And I come just, for 1 hour on the weekend, and that's it. That's all that I offer to God in my life. It says here, the next sentence, the mere possession of unused qualities only increases their responsibility. So if I possessed unused qualities, it increases my responsibility. The more things that I could do for God, the more qualities that I possess, the more I should be doing. And if you look at the parable of the talents, which is found in Matthew 25, I believe, it's all about using what you were given and multiplying it. And the very next episode we're going to have next week, by God's grace, is going to be about that, about how we multiply what we have when we put it to use. But we're not there yet. So the idea is that you have these things that you could do. You have these tendencies. You have these natural abilities, these gifts, but you're sitting on them. You're not putting them to work. And it says here that having them and not using them, it just increases our responsibility. It does not increase our rank or our standing, does not make us proud, but rather makes us more responsible. We have more things that we're responsible for. So those who possess large affections are under obligation to God to bestow them, not merely on their friends, but on all who need their help. This is a tough sentence, and it gets tougher from this to the end of this portion. So I'm going to read that again because this challenges me. And once again, I want to challenge you. And this is a conversation starter. You can agree, disagree. Let me know your thoughts. How would you apply this in a practical sense, right? Those who possess large affections. I'm not even sure what that means, but I think you're someone who loves, who cares, and you have this ability that you just notice the needs of others. Those who possess large affections are under obligation to God to bestow them. So if you have large affections, bestow that affection. Show your affection. Demonstrate. Be kind. Place yourself, once again, the way that I see this, place yourself in a situation where you can be kind to others, where you can put that kindness to work as opposed to just sitting at home or just sitting at church or just sitting at work. Place yourself in a situation where you can put that kindness to work. So, not only to your friends, but on all who need your help. It could be the new person at work, the new person at school, the new neighbor who just moved in, the new person who just started attending your church. How can you put your kindness to work? These feelings that you have inside, these wonderful things that God has given you, how can you use that to bless those around you? This next part here, I underlined this and circled it and put it in red. It says social advantages are talents. In the context of what we've been studying on this series, the talents are things that come from God, gifts from God. And here the author is saying that social advantages are talents. If you had the privilege of growing up in the nicer place, or maybe you gotten there, right, through success and hard work and going to school and just doing your very best at things, you find yourself with social advantage, right? You are in a better place. The author here understands this as also a talent, that is a gift from God, and you are to use it. So here is the whole sentence: social advantages are talents and are to be used for the benefit of all within reach of our influence. Who should you help? Whoever is within reach of your influence. And maybe you worked hard for what you have, and I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to say it came easy. I'm not going to say that you benefited from things that others don't have access to, even though that could be the case as well, often is. But let's say you started off just rough, and you worked really hard and you got to where you are. Congratulations. That's amazing. That's great. That's also a gift that God gave you. And now the question is, what are you going to do with it? The social advantages that you now possess, how can you use that to help others? Who should you help? Those who are within reach of your influence. So we all have that, right? We start, and for those of us who have been, the broke college student who had the minimal wage jobs, who began, as an immigrant, having to learn English and not knowing anything and just figuring things out as you go along. And then we receive blessings along the way, and some people look at it as luck, right? You get lucky. I like to think about it as God provides and God blesses, and you find yourself wherever you are right now. You are under a responsibility to help those who are within reach of your influence. That's it. Don't worry about the whole world. Don't worry about the things that are beyond your control. Just focus on those that are within reach of your influence and bless them. See what you can do for them. And like I said, here at the local church, we have different ministries and different things going on all the time. It all functions by volunteers. So find a place to volunteer. If you don't have a church, or if your church don't have those types of ministries, maybe you can get one started. Maybe you can just go to the community and find a soup kitchen, a food pantry, a shelter, and volunteer there. But do something to make the world a better place. This is how we show our love for God. This is how we serve God. We also serve one another. Next sentence: the love that gives kindness to only a few is not love. Like I said, this is challenging. I'm going to read that again. I have this underlined here in red. The love that gives kindness only a few is not love, but selfishness. Man, this author, right, is not pulling back any punches. The love that gives kindness to only a few is not love, but selfishness. This really hit hard for me. I'm still chewing on this and looking at my own life and seeing how can I be more loving towards more people. not only towards my family, not only towards those who love me back, but towards more than just a few people. So I'm still working on this, and I would love to know your thoughts on this and how do you take this, or what do you take this to mean, and how does this move you, and what can you do differently this week? Next sentence, it will not in any way work for the good of souls or the glory of God. So the love, I'm sorry, I should have read these two sentences together. The love that gives kindness to only a few is not love, but selfishness. Next sentence, it will not in any way work for the good of souls or to the glory of God. Those who thus leave their master's talents unimproved are even more guilty than are the ones for whom they feel such contempt. So this is going back to what we talked about earlier. You can look at the person like, oh, that person is really stingy. That person is really selfish. At least I do something. But if you're only showing love and kindness to a few, right? If you're not going out of your way to help people who are under your influence, within reach, people that you could help if you so chose, it says here that you are even more guilty than those for whom you feel contempt. The ones that you feel sorry for, the ones that you compare yourself to and say, I'm better than this person, I'm better than that person. According to the author here, you are in a worse case than the others because they have a few talents and they're not using them. You have many more and you're not using them either, right? So you're even more guilty because you have greater light, you have a better understanding, and with that, a greater responsibility to do what you can to help others. And I love this because I find that this helps us see the character of God, understand the character of God, and this idea of helping, and look at the ministry of Jesus and helping those who are considered sinners, and people that usually a religious type person would not interact with. And Jesus went out of his way to interact with those people and to help them. And then the question comes to us, are we living in that way? Do we shy away from opportunities to help others? Or do we step into it feeling a calling from God to help alleviate the suffering of someone that's within reach of our influence? So last sentence here, and we finish. Actually, I'm going to read the two sentences together because context helps. Those who thus leave their master's talents unimproved are even more guilty than the ones for whom they feel such contempt. To them it will be said, you knew your master's will, but you did it not. You knew what God expected of you. You knew what God wanted you to do, but you didn't do it. It's not that you couldn't. It's not that you didn't know how. You didn't even try. And that's the problem. I think if we're trying, if we're seeking, and I'll confess, it's not always clear to me the best way to help people. I'm pretty sure I've given money to people and it was a scam, right? It was a made up story because later when I went home, the more I thought about it, the more I realized, I fell for it. It happens, right? In my position here in the church, I get people that come asking for help, and we help as many as we can. We also try to be careful with the funds that we have. And sometimes it's great because we get to help people who are truly in need. But every now and then, I think back about the story and the things just don't add up. And I'm like, oh, I got scammed. It happens. But at least the way that I look at it, I'm failing in the right direction. I am trying to help, but fail. And this is helping also in my personal life where I've given money or food or diapers and things. And anyway, I have all kinds of story that goes with that. And then the person wasn't there, or they went, later they come back to the store to return it, and you just see them walking back and you're like, what? I just gave. Anyway, I would rather make a mistake in trying to help than to ignore someone in need. I know there's a danger of being just an enabler. We've talked about this in some of the episodes. We have to be careful. That's why it's good to help people that we know, people that are within our sphere of influence, our coworkers, our classmates, people in our neighborhood, people in our community, people in our church, people that you know a little bit better, as opposed to total strangers. But we should also help total strangers. It's more tricky, right? Figuring this out. But you're only going to learn when you start doing it. And that's also one of the advantages of volunteering with an organization that has been doing it for a while, because then they have more experience, they know better ways to doing it. The idea here, the challenge for me, and I'm passing it on to you, is to not leave any of these things that God gives us unused. these gifts, these talents, these advantages, social advantages, going back to the beginning, kindly affections, generous impulses, that we put this to work for the benefit of others. And if you don't know how, start praying about it, start looking for ways, get involved, and you're going to figure it out as you do it. I'm still figuring it out. And the more that I get involved, the more different things that I try, the more I find out what works, what doesn't, what goes with my giftedness, what doesn't. I just want to be doing my very best to help somebody else, to serve God, and to serve those around me. I challenge you to do the same. And please leave me a comment. What are your thoughts? Do you agree, disagree? Let me know. How are you putting this to work? How are you going to challenge yourself? Leave me a comment below. Once again, if you are on the Wisdom app, you can follow me. I have more things like this, and I'm going to try to post about once a week. Sorry, I can't tell you exactly what time because this is not a main thrust of my ministry. This is like a side thing that I do. As I have time, I just kind of squeeze it in. So you can follow me on Facebook, Pr.Marlon.com. Sorry, there's a page on Facebook as well, Pr.Marlon. But on my blog, Pr.Marlon.com, that's Pr.Marlon.com. And also at the Cloverdale Seventh-day Adventist Church, I am the lead pastor here. You can join us for our live streams. You can join us in person. You can get involved with our ministries. We're always looking for new ways to serve our community. But once again, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Get in touch with me through social media or through my blog. You can leave comments there as well. I'd love to hear from you. And next time, we'll be talking about, I'm really excited about this. It's going to be a longer one, but talents multiplied by use. I really like this section. The one for today was really hard. This next one, I'm really excited about as well. So I look forward to talking with you then. Thank you for your time. And until next time, may God bless you.